Hey guys, it's Rachel. It is Thankful Thursday, and as I always say, you've got me and you've got Cal this week. I know that Cal's been having a few issues uploading and processing her videos, but hopefully she's, let me just bring that down, is gonna be able to kind of deal with that, as she always has, you know, really wonderful things to say. And I think that it's also quite helpful that you get quite different perspectives from the both of us. This week we're starting a new rota, and Tara put together some things for this week, and they're pretty she's gone into quite a lot of detail with them, which is like really amazing. And actually what I'm going to look at today, and what Kel's going to look at, is to do with the thin ideal body shape, the sort of ultra thin body shape. And it's actually something that really interests me. I'm kind of doing a mini dissertation, as it were, like 5,000 words I've got to do for one of my assignments, and as much as I can understand that, you know, being presented with very thin images doesn't give you an eating disorder, I certainly, or I'm sure that it does impact us, because it can't not impact us, because we live in a society, we see images, you know, all around us, and it's not just to do with weight. But what's quite interesting to me is this idea that kind of since the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, one time all you saw in a magazine was somebody's face, you now get what are basically full body shots in bikinis, in underwear, or what have you. And that certainly has to have an impact on how you then see your own body. And what Tara's just written here, I'm just going to read it. She's just said, today, looking at fighting unhealthy social constructs, all cultures have norms and beliefs about appearance and social behaviour. Some of these benefit society while others don't. How can we fight the thin ideal so that this social norm of viewing an unattainable body appearance is no longer acceptable as a measure of success and beauty, like the Healthy at Any Size initiative? And I know that Dove have also done a lot of work with that, and beat the British, well, the Eating Disorder Association in the UK has done a lot of work with that, with Dove. So what I kind of mean by the thin ideal is, you know, these images, and the images that are in magazines, on television, on billboards, or wherever, are thin. You know, there's no kind of, that isn't a subjective perspective, it's a fact. And for the most part, certainly on the catwalks, you know, they are anorexic BMI, which is, you know, 17.5. Normal BMI is between 20 and 25. So you're actually getting images which perhaps they are attainable, but they're attainable by not eating right, because that's the only way. Okay, some people are naturally thin, I get that, but to that extreme, and to be that many images, okay, some of these, you know, celebrities or whatever, they work really hard to have the bodies that they do. But, you know, in the past sort of 10-20 years, there's just this like over focus on not just thinness, but what thinness relates to. Thinness has been associated to beauty, to success. It's seen as it's certainly seen as something that marks you out from the crowd. It gives you something. It's kind of looked upon and thought of as being how we should be, how we should look. And all I know, and this is obviously my personal experience, but the work that I do with young girls, is that for the most part, young girls nowadays are bigger than they were, bigger than when I was growing up, and they're developing at the age of 9, they're getting periods, they've got boobs, and some of them, I mean the girls I care for, you know, they're developed like I am, they're fully developed. And I don't particularly find it useful that all these images are shown to be what they should look like, because for them to look like that, they would have to restrict their eating, they would have to lose a significant amount of weight, and that isn't the message that we want to be putting out there. And how do we fight it? I actually did a piece of writing, and I'll put a link on my blog actually to do with this, and I don't know how we fight it. I don't know, and I don't have those answers. But I know that we have to do something about it, and I very much work on the prevention, opposed to cure thing. And that doesn't mean that I don't think people can get better and people can't be cured from an eating disorder, but it's got to start early on, and you've got to start this prevention, because we are in epidemic numbers when it comes to eating disorders. And I mean, something that's causing a lot of controversy at the moment is the Eat Less t-shirt, which has been seen on a model she isn't just thin. Okay, she looks ill. Okay, and again, that is fact, not kind of subjective perception. She looks ill. Okay, so that image alone could probably cause outrage, but it hasn't, because there's so many of those images. It's become the norm. When we open a magazine, we're not just looking at slim, well-developed, athletic bodies. We're looking at rail thin women, and things like that. I mean, okay, maybe it is a joke, but an eating disorder isn't a joke. And what my struggle with regards to the whole societal eating disorder things is, these images are not going to give somebody an eating disorder. But if you've got somebody who perhaps has issues, vulnerabilities, that the predisposition, maybe they're perfectionistic, maybe they have this certain drive, maybe they're in sport, the things that can lead to the development of an eating disorder, all those images did, and what they did for me, because my eating disorder was not about being thin, it was not about looking like models or celebrities or wanting to be this thin ideal. But when I was that thin, I just thought, oh right, well, she looks like this, and this person in this magazine looks like this, so it's okay. And I know what a lot of people find is when they do lose weight, that they're kind of congratulated for that, and all that does is reinforce the fact that what you're doing is right, not that an eating disorder is wrong. And it's kind of like, it's everywhere now. And how do we fight it? I don't know, and I said that just before, and I don't really know whether there can be an answer for this. Yeah, maybe it has to start early on. Maybe some of the initiatives that are going on with Dove and talking to young girls, and the only way I see it changing is if the images that are thrust in front of us are changed too. And what I find quite disturbing, and something I noticed the other day, and I kind of mentioned this to a friend, and I thought, I've seen some of those. Have you seen? There's been some articles, magazine articles, where they've used like a model, like two models, one who's like a plus size model, and one who's, well, I wouldn't say normal, but normal for models. So I'm talking kind of, thin, very thin. And I don't like that this has happened to me, but what I've been conditioned is that I don't like how clothes look on the bigger model. And I feel awful about saying that now, but because it's just getting in. And so when we see that, we're so used to seeing very thin people that anything other than that doesn't kind of look right. And I guess to change that is only by bringing models like Daisy Lowe and, people, girls, women who, they're not either extreme, but they're just kind of in that a healthy weight. They eat healthily, they look after their bodies. And that's the only way I see this kind of changing, and see the lines with regards to being thin is successful, being thin means you're beautiful. And it actually doesn't, because being thin, there isn't anything attractive about that. Being a very thin woman, a lot of people who are naturally very thin, my mum was tiny, she found it so hard. All she wanted to be was bigger. She wanted to be she wanted to be like a woman rather than looking like, you know, a young girl. And I guess that if we can change that, we can start to change, you know, if we're seeing more healthier sizes, that when we look in the mirror, that we see something that we can deem as being good enough. And that's what recovery can give you, and I guess that's how we start to fight this, that we run channels like this, that we talk about these things. And I'm going to go, guys, because I'm like running out of time, so I'll see you next week, okay?